we hello. We have been talking about David. All right, so we kind of jumped back. We went from Jesus to now we've jumped backwards back into the Old Testament, and we were talking about some of the things that happened. We how we made mention that all these people, this group of people. Now again, it's gotten huge, but it's still referring to the children of Israel, the Hebrew people, God's people. And so, so now they're all in this land, and we talked about how, they'll be fine, and then they'll do bad. They'll start believing in other things. They start mixing, and they stop forgetting what God told them to do. And then they get in bondage, and then they say they're sorry. And then God sets them back up again, and then gives them some rest. All right. So we are in a resting time. Okay. When we start talking about David, we're in a resting time. And then we said that there was when they get into the land and they get everything established and there's a hoopla that goes along, they finally have a king that is in charge of their section of land. Yeah, because there ends up being two sections. Yeah, long story. So they have their king, okay, that's in charge of them, and he was put there by God. So God, his name was Saul, and so God set him up, and he was doing fantastic. But then he started getting into trouble and thinking about more of himself, getting a little bit greedy and thinking about himself more than what he should have been doing was keeping his eyes on the Lord. And so he messes up. And so he does a really bad thing. And so God says, okay, that's it. You're not going to be king anymore. So I have to pick a new king. So he tells Samuel, go to this particular house, and you're going to meet a man, and he is the one that's going to be king. Now, when you get there, I will tell you who it is. And so Samuel goes, and it's Jesse's family. And so he's like, yes, please bring out your sons. And so Jesse's very proud. Oh, Samuel's here. Samuel was a very well-known prophet at that time. Ooh, to have him here, and he's going to choose one of my sons. Woo, boy, that's like, wow. And so as a dad, he was like, huge. Oh, this is awesome. And so he brings out his son, and one by one, no. Now he had 7 sons, but only 6 of them were right there at the time. And so I know it looks like a lot of people in the picture, but there were only 6 sons there at the time. And no, it's not any of those. And he's like, don't you have another son? It's like, well, I do have the son, but he's out in the field and he's really young. Go get him. So that's when we said that they went to go get David, and David was sitting underneath the tree, probably enjoying his time, watching over his sheep. And they said, David, come on, you gotta come home. What's wrong? What is it? What's happened? He's thinking, obviously something bad's happened. Nobody calls me away from the sheep. He says, Samuel's here and he wants to see you. Samuel. He knew who Samuel was. You mean Samuel? What's he want with me? Why does he want to see me? Say, come on. So they go, and of course, as he's walking up, Samuel looks at him, and God says, that's him. And so he has him come and kneel before him, and the Bible says that he anoints him. Now, I found my verse in my Bible. Oh, God got my glasses. Even though these are really big letters, it's going to get really bad. Try to put a necklace on today. Couldn't do it. Couldn't see to do it. Okay, so 1 Samuel chapter 16. It says, then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren. Let me hold there for just a second. So this is what happened. So David comes up, and Samuel probably, motions him over, and he has him kneel down, and he then takes this horn of oil. This is it. So it's like this little container that they had, and he's going to pour it on top of his head to anoint him. That's what they did for something special. If we remember, Jacob had that happen to him. He poured some oil over a rock to remember the place, because it was a special place where God came to visit him in a dream. It's kind of the same thing. The idea was that if you anoint someone with oil, then it's so that something special is happening. All right, there, and a special memory is going to be there. And so he anoints him with oil and probably says something to him. But I found the rest of the verse rather interesting. It says, then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren. That means everybody was watching. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. So after this, Samuel says, okay, see you later. And that's it. And he tells David, he probably, no, it doesn't say, but I imagine that David was found. He found out what was going to happen when he was anointed with the oil. He knew what it was going to mean, but there's not a whole lot he can do about it. He's only a young guy at this time. He's a young teenager at this time, maybe around 13ish. And so it's not like he's going to go be king right now. Right now there is a king, it's King Saul. And so it's just something for now that needed to be done. So Samuel leaves, and you imagine Jesse going, ooh, my son, ooh, this is exciting. And probably the brothers are thinking, what's going on here? So, and after that, the Bible says that David goes back and does what he's supposed to. He goes back and he is a shepherd. And he takes his trusty harp with him, and he plays his music and watches over his sheep and takes care of doing what he's supposed to. And that's what he's been doing. So that's what he's going to continue to do. But there's an interesting thing, because there's a couple times that as he's being a shepherd, as he continues to grow, because he doesn't take over being king right away, he continues to be a shepherd. But the Bible says that he was a good shepherd to his flock, and that he watched his sheep, played his harp, and sang to the Lord. So while he was there, he was singing, okay? And it said that God seemed to be very close to him after Samuel had anointed him. So he just really seemed to be, I guess you could say, extra sensitive to God, and he prayed a lot. He probably thought about God a lot. And it was just, there was a difference about him. And so, when we have Jesus in our heart, when we're trusting in Jesus, and when we know that we're going to go to heaven someday, that does make it different for us. We're not supposed to fear, because God is in control. And no matter what happens to us, I have a home in heaven. And so because I have a home in heaven, I don't have to necessarily fear a lot of different things that somebody that has you could say that I have hope of a future in heaven. Whereas if somebody doesn't have a hope, and they might be more scared about something, you see, we don't have to be scared no matter what's going on around us. We don't have to be scared, because God is there for us. And no matter what happens, we are going to have a place in heaven with him someday, as long as we're trusting in him. And so David had this difference about him, because God, he's really kind of focusing in on what God would have him to do. Wow, if I'm going to be a king, maybe he was thinking about, how kind of person do I need to be? I need to stay calm. I need to think. No, let's hope that's what happens as he continues to grow up. So while he's out there, again, taking care of what he's supposed to be doing, the Bible says there's two instances that happen that cause us to see that Daniel stayed attentive to his job. So he was paying attention to what he needed to do as a shepherd. He just didn't sit around all day going, hey, I don't have to do this all the rest of my life. Someday I'm going to be king, and I won't have to be a shepherd, and I won't have to sit. He still did his shepherd job, to the point of one day a bear came up and attacked his sheep. And the Bible says that David went after the bear and got his sheep and took care of the bear. Ooh, that rhymes. Took care of the bear. And then later there was a lion that also came up and tried to attack his sheep. And David also took care of his sheep and took care of the lion. Okay, that one doesn't rhyme. But yeah, so God was with David the whole time, and he continued to just do his job. Oh, he was doing it very well. We have to trust in the Lord. Okay. David was trusting in the Lord to help him to do this job and whatever job was going to come up next. But we have to as well trust God to help us through each and every difficult thing. Well, let me tell you what happens. Word gets around that David has this great musically voice, and he could play his instrument incredibly well. Apparently, King Saul is having some, let's put it nicely, issues. He's having some problems. He's having some hissy fits. He is. He's having a hissy fit. You see, when King Saul realized that he had done wrong, and that God was not pleased with him and God was not happy with him, it really kind of changed him. And he really kind of he wasn't handling it very well at all. And there were times when he was having hissy fits, and he would get grumpy and mopey. Y'all know about hissy fits. You know what happens. I know it's been a long time since you've been in Walmart, but do you remember? You hear it in the store. Somebody's screaming and crying because they want something and they're not getting it. And they have this huge hissy fit. Okay, that would have been King Saul. He started having some problems with his attitude. And there were times when people were like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We're going to do to calm this man down. This man's got to be calmed down. We got to do something. He would go in time out. He's king. You can't put the king in time out. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do to him to make him calm down? And they said, let's try music. Music is very calming. When I'm all finished with videos for the day, and I sit back in the back of the room and I work on checking to see what you sent me in a picture that day, what test you've worked on, I put my music on. It's very calming. So they tried that with King Saul. And somebody said, go get David. Get David. He knows how to play that harp really well. And so that's what they did. They sent for David, and David would sit and he would play his music, and it would just calm King Saul down and make him happy. Sometimes. Sometimes. He had some issues. So cool. But so that's what happens with David and how he gets to be king. So come back tomorrow and see what happens. Goodbye for today. Goodbye.